Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of COVID Conversations. I'm Harold Fisher. COVID virus continues to ravage families and communities across the globe. And for some who have been directly impacted by COVID, the lingering effects can be frightening and baffling. Well, today, my guest is part of a research project underway to help officials better understand the long-term effects of COVID, and they need your help. Dr. Adeyinka Laiyemo is Associate Professor of Medicine at Howard University's College of Medicine. Dr. Laiyemo, thank you so much for joining the conversation.
Thank you very much for having me. It's really a pleasure.
Well, thank you so much. Before I get into the heart of this conversation, I did want to ask you about something that just happened this week. We know, first of all, that the COVID headlines have been moving away from the top stories in newscasts. However, just this week, it has creeped back with the notification that Vice President Kamala Harris has tested positive for COVID. She tested positive, no symptoms. We know that she is fully boosted, fully vaccinated. But your thoughts that even those who are at the top of the political food chain are still susceptible to being infected?
I'm glad you actually brought that up. The fact is, it doesn't respect your status, your race, religion. I mean, it's an equal opportunity killer. I mean, if we look in terms of what has been happening over the last few years. However, we do know that with the advancement in medicine and everything else, and the precautions, public health initiatives that is being done with the vaccine and everything else, we are actually reducing the effect of COVID, which is good. And we do know that some people will actually have COVID and not even know that they have COVID. Okay, so that's part of why it is really important for all of us to do everything we can. You know, if the pandemics move from something that is pandemic to something that is simply endemic, that is now more around and is not killing people, then things can continue to make good progress for all of us. And the fact that somebody as highly placed as the vice president who have COVID, I mean, there's nothing that there's no place that it can't go. And we know it's something that's spread across the entire globe. So whatever efforts that still needs to be done is still very important. One of the things if I may just jump in on something, and that is the issue of vaccination. Because occasionally we still come across people who are still holding out from getting the vaccine. And so I think it's still important because, yes, even if you catch the COVID and you are vaccinated, studies upon studies have shown that the effect is less. Your body is able to tolerate it better, and you have a fighting chance, and you are less likely to die from it. So I'm using this opportunity to appeal to those who have not yet been vaccinated. Please get the vaccine. Please get the vaccine, because you'll be doing yourself and the rest of your family and everybody if all of us get vaccinated. So we should still continue to, promote healthy living for all of us.
Obviously, the health experts have learned quite a bit about COVID over the past several months, indeed the past 2 years. But there's still so much we don't know. Let's talk about what is now known as long COVID, and the people who have it, they've been called long haulers. What is long COVID?
So long COVID, typically when those who come down with symptoms, that's even the thing. Those who typically come down with symptoms and they are diagnosed with COVID in terms of how they present in the initial phases. For many viruses that we typically are more used to, when they burn their cause, the person recovers. But what we are beginning to understand is people who had COVID, sometimes they have symptoms that continues to linger for more than 4 weeks after they have had COVID. So these are the people that they tend to call the long haulers. So people who are continuing to have some symptoms, after about 4 weeks, about 28 days, 30 days after the um, onset of their symptoms for the COVID diagnosis. And what they tend to have varies. The most common things people often complain about is that their cognition is a little off, that it says brain fog, that that they are not back to where their typical baseline is. And sometimes people feel just tired, which they say they just fatigue. And some people continue to have shortness of breath. That they don't, their exercise capacity, their ability to function seem to have gone down. So for some people, it takes more time, 3 months, 6 months, and some people it still continue to linger on. But there's no specific symptom because many people have complained of different things. So the way to actually look at it is if you have a particular problem that was not present before you had COVID, and then it is presenting when you have your COVID, acute COVID, and then it's persisting, that will be the typical long hauler symptom.
I see.
Because if you have something before COVID, and sometimes it may get worsened during COVID, and so that's a little bit different, but it's still part of the same complex that the body has not returned back to its complete baseline after COVID. Now, many of these things we don't know very well why they are occurring, and it varies in people because we are very different. I mean, we know of the African proverb that will say fingers are different, right? They are all different. So somebody may have COVID and not even show any signs, except they are just screened, and then they'll say, "Oh, you are positive for COVID," and he has no symptoms. And we do know of people, who passed away from COVID. So we still have a lot to learn.
Yeah. The when you talk about long COVID, and I want our viewers to be clear, if it's something that you had that you didn't have before COVID, you get COVID, and now after COVID, you now may have, as you said, shortness of breath. Does that mean that COVID is still existing in your in your system, or is that just the result of what is left after COVID has been cured from your system?
Okay, so that's part of the things that we are still learning about, because we do know that when you have some damages to the body system from a myriad of things that may happen, the body may take some time to recover. Okay, and sometimes the recovery process is different in terms of what happens in sequelae. If I may give an example, if you have a cut on your hand, some people will heal with a very fine scar and you will not even see where it happened, right? Some people may heal the same type of injury and then you see keloid form in their area that is become raised, and so people's body react differently. And why that happens, sometimes we really don't know. So some of what is happening with long haulers, as they would call them, those who have post-COVID symptoms,
Hmm.
we really don't know many of these things in details. There are some studies on that being done to try and tease out what predicts it, what may be associated with it, who are the people that tend to get it. So there are many studies ongoing, but there's nothing definitive yet. So there's still a lot that needs to be learned before we can make concrete statements regarding it. However, we do know, and I'm going back to the vaccine issue, those who get vaccinated, they have less chance, they have less predisposition towards having long COVID. They have, because now we are beginning to have data that is showing that those who are vaccinated, when they get COVID, they have reduced propensity of developing long COVID. So again, still are pleading, almost like a broken record, but I think it's really important. Those who have not been vaccinated should really consider getting vaccinated.
Hmm. Talk to me about the research that you're doing regarding long COVID.
So thank you for having us. So this study, which is actually appropriately called Researching COVID to Enhance Recovery, because we all want to recover. And so the statement for that for the study is actually recover, which is for all of us to recover from COVID. And I'm sure all of us want to recover from COVID. So the study is a what we call longitudinal study. That is, we'll follow people over time. The time of follow for somebody who gets COVID now is for 4 years in terms of seeing what happens. But people will enter the study from different dates based on when they had their COVID. Now, so majority of the people in the study will be those who have had COVID, but those who did not have COVID also can participate because they will then serve as controls. Okay, because we will know they never had COVID, and whether somebody gets vaccinated or not does not matter in terms of participating in the study. If you get COVID, you can participate. If you didn't get COVID, you can participate. If you had vaccination, you can participate. If you didn't get vaccination, you can participate. If you had COVID in, when it started, the what I may call the primary one, the first one that came around, before all these numerous variants are now coming out, you can participate. If you get the new one, you can participate. So it's really open to everybody. The major exclusion for our own part of the study is the person should be an adult. By adult,
Okay.
the person should be over 18. And then the person should be able to give consent to participate. Okay. So you can't enroll, you can't say, oh, I'm nominate somebody else to, So the person must be able to participate. And then, of course, those who are free living, So the study is not enrolling, like those who are incarcerated or anything like that. So because the person must be able to come freely and easily for enrollment and for studies to monitor their um, what's going on in their health over the period. Okay, so those are the um, major qualification to be part in the study. So it's really open. It's really
Yeah.
open to everybody who may want to participate. And yes, please go ahead.
I was going to ask, you know, that the Black community has struggled with wanting to participate in research. That is a well documented fact. Why, from your perspective, is it important to have people of color participate not only in this research, but in any?
So the way somebody once told me in terms of participation is when you participate, you get your voice heard. That's
Okay.
one. And number two, things that are peculiar to you, you'll be able to bring it forth for others to know. We do know that COVID actually negatively affected us, the minorities, a lot more. We know that. So by participating, we are going to be able to bring our own perspectives, what the challenges are, whatever it is that we can learn from what happened so that we can best protect ourselves in right now as we learn what's the issues with COVID, and also in the future, because knowledge gain is always incremental in science. Okay, so we don't wake up one day to know everything. We
Right.
know a little bit, a little bit, a little bit. So I will say in this particular study, we are actually talking about recover. We are not really doing any intervention. We are not, it's not as if we are going to give you a pill or give you an injection or anything like that. No, we are pretty much trying to study and understand differences that is occurring in people. And that's why what we are looking at is when the person comes in, we will understand what did you have, how did you present when you have it, what sort of comorbidities do you have, what was the cause of your COVID when you had it, what are the symptoms or effects you are still having from it, what impact has it had on your life, you see, social determinants of health, and then we'll collect some biospecimen to help us further understand which direction science will need to go in terms of understanding COVID. So in terms of collecting blood samples, saliva, okay, nasal swab, stool, and urine, because we know when you have COVID, it affects virtually every part of the body. So that with this specimen, as we develop technology and we develop more understanding of the disease, then we can actually have all these biospecimen to do some research in the future. Okay, so but right now there's no intervention that like giving you medicine, or no, that's not involved in this study at all. So this is trying to understand it, trying to understand what the effect of COVID is, so that in the future we are better prepared.
It sounds like it is non-invasive research, short of, as you said, a nasal swab and the like. How long would you need the person to physically participate in this particular research, where you would need, their presence?
Okay, so it depends on when they actually enrolling relative to when they had the COVID, because everybody had it at different times and different waves. So if we take somebody who, let's say, gets COVID today, that would be like somebody who had acute COVID. So we want to see the person every 3 months for the first year, okay, to just see how they make progress, right? And thereafter is every year. So, but for those who have had COVID, let's say more than a year ago, we'll
Mm-hmm.
get the baseline, but now they are more than a year. So we may their next visit is going to be scheduled based on the time interval. So it may just be the yearly one they will have. So everybody will be entering the study at different times based on their index date of having COVID. Now, some of these visits are just going to be the ones that are missing every year is when you are actually collecting specimen, and it's not all those specimens get collected at every time point, but some of them get collected at different times. But at baseline, the one I mentioned, all those get collected at baseline, and then subsequently things are monitored. However, like every 3 months, we can call you to just say, how are you feeling, how's your
Okay.
body, things
Mhm.
like that. So that will be part of, but in terms of physically coming to the center, it's only in the first, if you get it today, that would be like the 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and 12 months. And thereafter is just every year. Okay. So, but for those who have had it for longer, it's adjusted so that it's only times, uh, it's the interval is based on when they actually have the original infection.
I see.
Yeah. So it varies depending on when the person actually had COVID.
Well, Dr. Adeyinka laiyemo. Sorry about that. I'm still working on getting those pronunciations down. I want to thank you so much.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much. I
For
really
sharing.
appreciate it.
And good luck with this really important research.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on your show. And I want to thank you and the staff for all the opportunities and the fact that we are reaching out to our community, which I think is actually really, really important,
Yes.
because we all want to survive and recover from COVID. As
Yeah,
it,
we all want to get out of this,
yeah,
and
exactly.
as best we can. Doctor,
Exactly.
again, thank you so much for your input.
Thank you very much for having me.
Sure. And if you or someone in your family has had COVID or are feeling the long-term effects of COVID, you might be able to help health officials better understand more about long COVID and how to treat it. Learn how by participating in the study. You can find it online at recovercovidstudies.org. That's recovercovidstudies.org. And thank you for joining us for another week of COVID Conversations. As always, we promise to continue to bring you the experts to help you go beyond the fear to the facts about COVID. We want to make the best decisions and help you make the best decisions to keep you and your family safe. Take care of yourself. I'm Harold Fisher. We'll see each other again.